Evening, everybody, and welcome to an evening with Joseph Alexander. I am Alyssa Trachtman. I'm the Director of Operations for the Tennessee Holocaust Commission, and we are thrilled to have each one of you join us on this very special occasion. We had a tremendous response. Over 600 people will be joining us tonight, if not more. So we're just thrilled. Before we begin, I would like to give you the chance to meet our amazing staff at the Tennessee Holocaust Commission. I'm going to start with Ken Gluck, who is our state education coordinator. We've got Allison Vick, who is our state historian, and Maureen Germain, who is our office manager, admin assistant. And it gives me great pleasure now to introduce you to our chairman of our commission, Larry Leibowitz.
Thank you, Alyssa. The Tennessee Holocaust Education Commission was founded in 1984 by the Tennessee legislature with the assistance and connivance of a group of concerned citizens. Its purpose is to memorialize the events of the Holocaust and to honor both Tennessee survivors and liberators who were either in the camps or liberated the camps during World War II. This is an auspicious date because in a week, on April 28th, it will be International Holocaust Remembrance Day, which is the anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto uprising. It's especially poignant to remember the Warsaw Ghetto, which was the largest Jewish resistance and uprising of the war, when the forces of tyranny and brutality are so evident in Eastern Europe as we speak. Our mandate from the state is to memorialize the Holocaust and educate our citizens about atrocities committed then and at other times as a result of bigotry and tyranny. We encourage citizens to rededicate themselves to the principles of human rights and equal protection under the laws of a democratic society. We work with educators, students, and citizens across the state of Tennessee and, in fact, across the world. I would now like to introduce Ken Gluck, who will take over the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. First, I wanted to say thank you to everyone for attending. It makes me believe that we're doing something for the right reasons and people want to hear programs like this. I want to have a special thank you to David Meyerhoff. David is the Holocaust Speaker Coordinator for LA counties and Glendale counties in California. And he is the one that introduced us to Joseph and made this all possible. Also, for those of you out there, if you have questions and answers throughout the program, don't put it in the chat, please. Down below at the bottom of the screen, you'll see something that says Q&A. That would be the place for you to write your questions at the end of the program in approximately 45, 50 minutes. We will take the time to read as many of those questions as we can and give Mr. Alexander the opportunity to answer those for us. I want to thank the commissioners for attendance today. I know many of them are here as well. A very special thank you to Pellissippi State College. They were the ones that kind of spearheaded this. It was for them that we were starting to put the program together, and they were gracious enough to allow us to expand this and allow everyone else to attend that's here tonight. In that regard, I wanted to, and this is going to take a moment, so bear with me, but thank you to the following schools for their attendance. We have people from Alcoa Schools, Bradley County Schools, Chattanooga Libraries, Chattanooga State, Coffee County Schools, Davidson Academy, DeKalb County Schools, Episcopal Academy, ETSU, First Assembly Christian School out of Memphis, Greensboro City Schools in North Carolina, Greenville Schools here in Tennessee, Hamblin County Department of Education, Hamilton County Schools, Jackson State Community College, the Jewish Federation of Nashville, Kingsport City Schools, Knox County Schools, Knoxville Jewish Federation, Kentucky Community and Technical College System, Margolin Hebrew Academy, Marion County Board of Education, Marshall County Schools, Maryville City Schools, McNairy County Schools, Metro Nashville Public Schools, MTSU, Murray State, Northeast State, Oak Ridge City Schools, Ole Miss, Pellissippi State, Roane State, Sumner County Schools, our teacher fellows, of course, the United Jewish Federation of Tidewater, Virginia, University School of Nashville, UT Knox, Knoxville, Vanderbilt, Virginia Tech, Weber School, Woodford, Kentucky Schools, and everyone else that's in attendance tonight. I thank you for bearing with me on that list. And without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Mr. Joseph Alexander, the reason we're all here.
Thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Joseph Alexander. I'm a Holocaust survivor from Poland, and I survived 12 camps. I come from a small town in Poland, and I had a family, had a parents, 3 sisters and 2 brothers, and I'm the only survivor. My father was in business, and we had a very good life in Poland until 1939. When the Germans came into Poland, they divided Poland in 2 halves. One half was annexed to the Third Reich, to Germany. The second part was Poland under German occupation. We lived on the part where it was annexed to the Third Reich. And some of you maybe probably know that Europe, every town has a town square. And that's where most of the business are. We lived in the town square, and also we were in the part where it was annexed to Germany, to the Third Reich. And we lived in the town square. We were on the one corner of the square, which we were the second house, and the third house was an uncle of mine. After a few weeks, they came in and went after the uncle, went around the square and told the people they have 10 minutes to get their possessions and get up in the middle of the square, and they took them away. Right away, a rumor started that they're going to come back 3 days later and take the rest of us. So my dad had 3 sisters living 25 kilometers before Warsaw, which was the other half of Poland. So Dad said, we're not going to wait for them to come and give us 10 minutes. So he got out and he rented a wagon. We had deep wagon, horse-drawn wagon, but about 6-8 feet deep. Then we packed up most of the stuff from the store, and my parents and 1 sister and brother, they left. And I remained with 2 older sisters, and we were loading up a second wagon. In the meantime, we had Polish people from around town were coming to town to buy anything they can get. So I sold a man a bicycle and a boat of shirt material. On the way home, you got stopped. You went past the police station, so he got stopped. You wanted to know, where did he get this? Ask him where. I said, I bought it, he said. Show me a receipt. He said, I don't have a receipt. Then go bring the person who sold it to you. So he came back to me, he said, you have to come with me. If not, they're gonna come here. And we had a second wagon loaded, ready to go. So I went with him, and he asked me, did you sell him this? I said, yes. Why didn't you give him a receipt? I said, we in Poland, we didn't give a receipt. So he took the boat material, smacked the guy, go, and let me go. And I went back, and my sisters waited for me, and we took off with the second wagon. And we went to a little town named Bologna. about 25 kilometers before Warsaw. So we come there and see there business people still in business, everything going on almost normal. Everybody has to go to work. So then I came there. I was there for about a couple of weeks or so, and I went to my first camp. I went to a camp where we work during the week. On the weekend, you go home. But the work we were doing, we were building a canal. We stayed in the water up to the knee without boots. And that was in October, November. And that in Europe, that's winter time already. So after a few weeks, I got blood poisoning on my arms, on my legs. So I went home one weekend and I said, I'm not going back. So Monday morning, the police came to look for me. And my dad says, he's not here, he's supposed to be in the camp. So they left, and I stayed away from home for a while. And that was the time when you heard about the Warsaw Ghetto. That's the time they started to build the wall in Warsaw where the ghetto was going to be. So after they got through building the wall, they came out and ordered all the Jews from within 50, 60 kilometers in the surrounding area of Warsaw had to move into the ghetto. So we moved into the ghetto, and the life in the ghetto, you can't even imagine how miserable it was, because the space they picked out, where they put the wall around, was a very small place, and they put 260,000 people in. So people were dying. Every day you saw people, dead people on the streets, on the sidewalks, everywhere. Terrible. So I lived in the ghetto almost 5 months, and we found out that back home, since we left, nothing has changed. So my parents decided for an older sister and a younger brother and I, we should go back home. So get home, so you have to get out of the ghetto. So we paid off the guard at the gate to get out. And we got out and decided my sister and brother take one street, I'll take another street. And we walked through town and we'll meet on the outskirts of town. I walked for about 2 or 3 blocks, and a post-teenager comes over and said, give me some money, I'm gonna report you. So I figured I gave him some money and I got rid of it. And I kept walking. But he got on the streetcar, rode the streetcar for a few blocks, and he comes over again, give me some more money. So this time I gave him some more money, but I changed the street and I lost him. And I walked to the outskirts of town and met my sister and brother, and we went home. So came home, everything was the same since we left. But it lasted 3 days. I was free for 3 days. After the 3 days being there, we came out all the Jewish men from 16 to 60 report to the schoolhouse. So I report to the schoolhouse and off I went to the camps. And I was going from camp to camp. So the first camp I went to, we were building a dam. Building a dam, you have cut down hills, and we had the little electric cars to fill up, and they take them another place and they dump them. The work was very hard work, because to fill up those little cars, we had to use picks to loosen up the ground. So it was very hard work, and the food you were getting was a piece of bread like this in the morning and a cup of coffee, and you went to work. You came back from work, you got a soup. Most of the time was from the peels from the potatoes or spinach. From that food, you couldn't survive. You couldn't do the work and you couldn't survive. The only way you could survive, because we worked with civilians. If you could manage just a little extra food, that's the only way you could survive. So people were dying, and we were in a camp were in the city of Poznan. And there were a lot of sub-camps in the city and around the city, a lot of camps. The same thing happened in other camps. People were dying, the same thing. So they combined 2, 3 camps into one. After a while, same thing happened at this camp. So actually, the next camp I went to, I was doing cobblestones, laying cobblestones in the streets. Then lasted for a while when I was transferred to another camp, we were building sewers. That lasted a while, we were transferred to another camp. We were building an airport. I was laying railroad tracks. So I was going from camp to camp. After being in about 7 camps, a train arrived, and it wasn't a passenger train, you know, a cattle car train, where you have a little 2 feet window, and they open the doors and you put in 40 to 50 people in one boxcar. So the destination we were going takes about 5 to 6 hours at the most. But we were riding around for 3 days, no food, no water, no facilities. And we arrived in Auschwitz. Arrived in Auschwitz, the train, there's a little town named Auschwitz. So the train stopped downtown, because later on they built the trains to go right into the camp. But at that time, that was in 43, they didn't have that yet. So the train stopped downtown, and they opened the doors. About 30–40% of the people were dead on the train already. Whoever could walk, you walked out, and you lined up in rows of 5, and we met Dr. Joseph Mengele. Dr. Mengele was called the Doctor of Death. He selected people for human experiments or to the gas chamber. So Dr. Mengele said there's 6 kilometers to walk to the camp. He's going to select some people to go to the left, and the people on the left will be taken on trucks. So he was going through, and he picked out sick people, old people, young kids, and he picked me out too, because I was a little guy. But if I would come from home, I would know the difference. But I was already in 7 camps. In most of the camps I had to go to work, I tried to get in with the biggest, the strongest man. And here it tells me go to the left, not look around, sick people, old people, young kids. That's not the kind of people I like to be with. My luck was, it was after midnight. If it was in daytime, I don't know if I could have done it. When Dr. Mengele moved further down, I ran back to the other side. If I didn't run back to the other side, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. Because the people on the left were taken on trucks, went straight to the gas chamber. So I went back to the other side, and we walked to the camp. Walked to Auschwitz, and I got a shower. And I came out of the shower, I got a tattoo. You can see right here. That's the number I got. This is 142584. From that moment on, that was your name. You had no name anymore. So I got a tattoo, and we walked to the Auschwitz II, which is Birkenau. I was in Birkenau for a while, and the life in Birkenau, people gave up. They were just running, the fence were all electric. So people were running to the fence to get electrocuted. I saw people being beaten to death. So because people gave up. And I saw Dr. Mengele 2 more times in Birkenau. But it was daytime, and I was far away from where he was, so I got through. So then I was trying to get out of there, because once in a while they came up and they said they need some people to go to work to send out to other sub-camps. But as my father didn't, then they came out, they said they need tailors. My grandfather and my father were tailors. So I report, and they come right in front of me, you go back, we don't need anymore, we have enough. So I'm still back in the camp. So after a while, after that, short time, and that was around the time in April 1943, when the Warsaw Ghetto uprising started. So after this, they came and they said they need a big transport, but they didn't want to take any people from Poland, only from Greek, Hungary, or Italy, any other but from Poland. But in the end, they were short about 300 people. So they said, now we take some people from Poland. So I report and get the same train, another 3 days going back to the Warsaw Ghetto for me the second time. So I come back to the Warsaw Ghetto, there was no buildings left. All the buildings were burned out. There were just the remaining walls. And there was no camp. So they gave us some prefab. So we had to put together our own barracks. And there was no facilities, nothing. Then a shirt I was wearing, there was no shirt left. Just shreds. It was eaten up by lice. And so until we built the camp, on Sunday, you got a shower, and you got some fresh clothes. And the work we're supposed to do when we came back is take down those walls, the remaining walls from the building, brick by brick, and clean them up and put them up in stacks of about 8-10 feet high. That's the job we're supposed to do. So after working for a while, the typhus broke out. So anybody who reported for the hospital, I never knew anybody who came out from the hospital. Typhus is when you get high fever. I got the high fever like this, but I didn't report to the hospital because I had we called a copper, like a foreman. He was a German middle-aged man, but he was also a prisoner. So he didn't care if we worked or didn't work. So when I got it, I was sitting behind those bricks with my arms crossed over like this for about 3 days until I got over that temperature and I went back to work. I was working a while. Then the Polish underground attacked our camp one night and trying to free us. So they were unsuccessful. So the next morning, they closed the camp and they took us out and we had to jog to get out of the city because they were afraid. They said that the underground may attack us in the city. So we jogged to get out of town and they put us up on a big field where farmers graze the cows and the ground is very moist. So they put us up on that field. Whatever means you have, a knife, a spoon, anything, you could dig up some mud. And you took the bottom of your shirt and you squeezed the mud to get a little water. So we had a little water in the morning, we were on the march. Come to the city, next city, there was a river. They let us go to the river to get some water. 2 of our people went a little too far into the river. They thought maybe they wanted to escape, get out. So they got shot, killed in the river. So we got some water and we were walking. So we walked. The next day we come to another town where the same river. So they said only 100 people at a time can go to the river to get some water. So 100 people at a time. And then we started to walk. And that day was very heavy rain coming down. You walk and you couldn't even walk. You were soaking wet until we arrived at the railroad station. And the next morning, the same train arrived, same Karuka train arrived. And we got on the train. We were on the train for 3.5 days. No food, no water. And we went to Germany. Germany to a camp named Dachau. Dachau was the first camp Hitler built in 1933 for political prisoners. Then he turned it into a concentration camp with the gas chambers, the ovens. So I came to Dachau for about 2 weeks. I didn't do anything because they were establishing camps with 12 camps within 50, 60 kilometers from Dachau, around the surrounding area of Dachau, from 1 to 12 by number. So after about 2 weeks, I went to a camp number 1, and we were working for a farmer digging potatoes. That wasn't too bad because we made a fire and one of us was baking potatoes all the time. So we had some baked potatoes. But that lasted about 3 weeks. After this, I was sent to a camp named Camp Number 7 to a city of Landsberg am Lech, which is 50 kilometers from Dachau. So Camp Number 7 was a small camp, only about 150 people. Plus, we had some women in the same camp. They were blocked off by a wire fence, but we went to work together. So come to Camp 7, there were a small group of us. We were in the camps already over 40 years. So we had the privilege of getting the better jobs. So friends of mine worked in the kitchen, and some others were the police in the camp, and a couple other ones. One was a carpenter, one was a blacksmith. And I got a group of 10. We were 5 girls and 5 boys, working right outside the camp at the kitchen for the German guards. And there were 2 German men in charge of the kitchen. They were very nice, very good men, very nice men, because every day I was going back after work, going back to the camp. I took some food back for my friends, and we always had some soup left over. We had some big milk cans. I took a can and put it in, and the next morning people were going to work. They had to pass by our kitchen, so I stopped them and gave them some food. A couple of times, the officer in charge of the guards complained that I'm holding the people up who going to work. So my people say, don't worry, let them talk, do what you're doing. That lasted for quite a few weeks, until actually April 28th, all the 12 camps had to go back to Dachau. So I went back to Dachau and stayed overnight there on the field there overnight. And the next morning, we were going what they called a dead march. They're supposed to take us in Germany, where in the mountains, there was a ski resort named Garmisch-Partenkirchen, and kill us in the mountain. But we were walking for about 2 days, and we knew we're not going to be walking too far, because we could hear the American troops are not far behind us. You could hear the fighting, and planes coming over and bombing the city. So after about 2 days, we crossed a little bridge, and the bridge was blown up. So our group was divided in 2 halves. I happened to be on the right-hand side in a village named Königsdorf, and there was a little forest in the village. So they took us into that forest, and they asked volunteers to take the sick people into the village and put them in to the farmers, to the barn, and told the volunteers to come back. One of the volunteers was a friend of mine. So on the way back, they found a dead horse in the snow. So they cut off some pieces from the horse. And my friend comes back, and here, this is, that's him. His name was Joe Buddha. So he comes back with a piece of meat and he said, do something. So we were in the forest, they had wood, I made a fire, and I was barbecuing. And that was the best meal we had in a long time. And during the night, we didn't know that the guards disappeared. And the next morning, the German police came and they took us into the village and they disappeared. So we were just walking around in the village. Police came in around between 8 and 9 o'clock. And we were just walking around the village to see what next would happen. Until about between 12 and 1 o'clock, American tank moved in and we were liberated. And behind the tank came the American troops were behind. And they're trying to block off the village not to let anybody out. But we were a group of 9 of us. We were in the camps over 5 years already. So we didn't want to get blocked in. So we broke through and started to walk to see where the next town is. We walked for about 1 or 2 kilometers. There was a bakery. You got in the bakery and everybody got a bread. You had a bread, you were okay. So I had a bread and walked and come to a town named Bartels and see 3 American soldiers walking. They're trying to walk. They were so drunk they couldn't walk. They were holding on to each other like this. They couldn't even walk. But the group, they saw the clothes, I guess we were wearing. So they asked, are you Polish? Yes. I said, come on. So they took us into an underground bunker. It was a warehouse. You couldn't see the end of it. Probably anything you can think of is probably in that warehouse. So the first thing, we changed clothes. Everybody took a backpack and put some food in. And there was a big row of bicycles chained up. They broke the chain and everybody got a bicycle. So then, when the American troops came in behind that tank, they brought all the people into that city. There was a German Air Force base and they made a DP camp, a displaced person camp. So, but we didn't want to go to a camp. So tried to get out of the city. We couldn't get out. It was 6 o'clock was curfew. It was after 6 o'clock. So we hopped over about 3 or 4 fences and we come to a German inn, but it was taken over by the American troop. And in the back of the inn was an empty house. So we took over the house and stayed in the house about 10 days. Then they came out and ordered anybody who lives outside of the camp has to move into the camp. So I moved into the camp and we were taken back to Munich to another DP camp. But you were free. You wanted, you could live at the camp or you can go any place you wanted. So I lived in the camp about 3 days and a few friends of mine and I who were in camp number 7 in Landsberg decided to go back there to Landsberg. And Landsberg was one of the largest DP camps in Germany. There was a lot of camps in Germany. So I went to the camp, we registered, gave us a room. And the next morning, I moved out because I didn't want to live in the camp. The reason we went to register the camp, because a lot of camps, we went to register to all the camps in case any of your families survived. So we went to look through the list because when I got out of the Warsaw Ghetto, I left my parents and 2 sisters and 1 brother. I left in the Warsaw Ghetto. And I don't know, never know what happened to them. And another one, I got out with a sister and younger brother. When I came home, after 3 days, I was taken to the camp. And a few weeks later, they were taken to another ghetto called Lodz. So the only thing I know, after it was my first camp, I got a letter from my sister and she told me they took my brother He was 12 years old. And at that time, they didn't have the gas chambers yet. So they're gassing people on trucks. They were running trucks on wood and putting the fumes inside the truck. And he was taken to a camp named Chelmno. That's the only thing I know. I don't know what happened to her. I don't know. So that's why I say we went to list us on the list, put us on the list on the camps. So anyway, so I went back to there, to Germany, and after I moved out to a farm, I lived in a farmhouse. I lived there for 6 weeks, and I decided to go back to Poland, to my hometown, to go to my house to see if anybody came back. So I come to the house, and I had some survivors living in my house on the second floor. On the first floor was some Polish people, but they said no immediate family, nobody came back. The only one that came back was a cousin of mine. He was 2 years younger than I, and we were separated. I was with him and two of his father's brothers. And when we came to Auschwitz, that's when I was separated. That's him here on the other end. Very bad. Hey, and his name was Mark Alexander. We had the same last name. He survived, but he's in a different town. And that was very bad for survivors who came back. The Polish people were killing a lot of survivors because when they took the Jews out, so they moved into the houses. Now, some of the survivors come back, so they didn't want to give up the houses, so they were killing a lot of survivors. In one town, they killed 42 survivors. So they asked me, actually, the Polish people living on the first floor of the house, they asked me if I'm going to stay, he's going to move out. So I said, no, don't worry, don't move. Because then I went and I got my cousin and we went back to Germany. And I lived in Germany for 4 more years because I had no place to go because you had no passport. You couldn't go any place. You had to wait until some country opens up. So after 4 years, Canada opened up and said they'll take some people. So I went to register, and you have to wait until they call you. It took a long time, you didn't hear anything. In the meantime, a friend of mine lived in the next village. He said, Joe, you can go now to Munich, and you can register to go to America. So I went, I registered to go to America. In a very short time, I got a notice to go to see the American doctor. And then I had to go to get checked out by the FBI. And then I got a notice to go to Bremerhaven. That's the port in Germany where to get the boat to come to America. So I went, I got the boat and came to America. Excuse me. Came to America, so everybody had to have a sponsor. Either have some relative here or an organization. I didn't have any relatives here, so I was sponsored by a Jewish organization named Joint. So my contract was Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So I went to Harrisburg, and I got a job as a tailor, working for a man who had a cleaning store and tuxedo rental. So I worked for him, and this man, a father couldn't be better than he was to me. It was very good. And then the cousin of mine who survived, he had an uncle here in Santa Monica, and he was his sponsor. So I came in May, and he came in October. So he came to Santa Monica and told the uncle that I'm in Pennsylvania, and we were the only 2 survivors from both of our families. So the uncle called me a few times, I should come here so we can be together. So I came to California in 1950, and here I am. And before we go on to the other things, I also was in 3 camps. I had to watch people being hung. They're trying to escape. And then on Sunday, you had to gather around everybody to watch him being hung. I went to 3 camps, I saw that. So now I'm here, and I don't know, David, do you want to show something? What do you have to show?
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna have like some slides in a minute. Oh, Ken, if you can set it up.
I'll bring those up. It should be on the screen. Was it not on the screen?
Yeah, that's a picture. You see, there's some shelves. And there were 3 people on one section. There were 3 people in one section. On the second section, on the right-hand side, if you can see, right down here, that's Elie Wiesel. You probably know who he was. Elie is right there. And the second row at the end, way on the end, on the bottom, that's him, second. That's Elie Wiesel. And what else do you have there to show? Or do I show something?
Yeah.
Well, this is my document from the camp in Munich, you see. But on this here, it shows you right here, it shows that I was in the camps from 1939 to May 2nd, 1945. That's the one from Munich. You have the other ones. You have one from Auschwitz. No, I don't see it on the side. Here. Oh yeah, on the bottom. The one on the bottom here. Oh.
Yeah, the next one.
Yeah, no. Oh, the next one is actually I probably see it better maybe. Oh, there. See it better here. That's from Auschwitz, and there's you see on the bottom here. That's the tattoo 142584. That's right on the bottom here, on that. This, and then I have one from. This is the one, the liberation from Dachau. Well, here, okay. This is my driver's license from Germany, which is, there's no expiration date on this. It's a lifetime driver's license from Germany. And, okay, you go back, can you go back to Angela Merkel?
There.
Yeah. And 2015, I was invited by the German government to come back to celebrate, as you see here, the 70th anniversary of the liberation of Dachau. And I spoke to Angela Merkel in Dachau there. And we were celebrating for 5 days, days and evenings, all kinds of, we're going out to different places. With all the German entertainers and everything for 5 days, constantly all entertained. Mm.
Do you want to give like a message, Joseph?
Yes. What's the message?
Well,
Oh,
something.
for me, me. Yes, I have a message. You know, the Nazis, the Germans, they murdered 6 million Jews, 1.5 million children. They didn't murder them because they were criminals or did anything wrong, just because they were Jews. And now we have a lot of anti-Semitism going on, and they are Holocaust deniers. I call them crazy. They're crazy because the evidence are still in existence today. You go to the camps. I was in all the camps lately a few times, and there were thousands of people daily coming by buses, people from all over the world to witness the gas chambers and the ovens are still in existence. So that's why I call them they're crazy. So don't listen to those people. Those are the Holocaust deniers. So don't listen to them. If you do hear or see anything wrong, don't be afraid to report to the authorities. So
Maybe just one more thing about, how you survived.
well, how I survived?
What you say.
Well, actually, there's 2 times I can tell you how I survived. Is because of my parents, they decided for me and sister and brother to get out of the Warsaw Ghetto. Otherwise, I would have been with them where they went. That's one thing. The second time when Dr. Mengele told me to go to the left, and if I didn't run back to the other side, I wouldn't be here now too. So that's how I survived. And I always managed every camp, every time I went to work, I always managed to get a little extra food. So that's how I survived. I've been asked a lot of times from the kids when I talk to the kids in person at schools. So they tell me, did you ever think of giving up? Because I told them, I saw people gave up and run to the electric fence to get electrocuted. People being beaten to death. I said, no, I never gave up. I never lost hope. I always believed in God. And I said, I may have a bad day today, but I hope tomorrow will be a better day. But I tell them, never give up.
We do have a few questions from participants from the audience. The first question is, how old were you, sir, when you had to leave your home to enter the ghetto?
16.
16. Wow. You just answered our next question, actually, which was someone was asking where you got your strength to survive.
Like I said, my strength I got from God. God wanted me to survive. So I guess I can tell you what happened. You and everybody else. That's why God wanted me to survive. That's why, like I said, I did never stop believing in God. And He saved me from the Warsaw Ghetto. He saved me to get out. And He saved me from Dr. Mengele because I maybe disappointed him because I outsmarted him. Because I ran out. He told me go to the left, then I ran back to the right. So I said God was with me all the way.
Just can you mention how old you are?
I'm 99 and a half actually already. I was 99 in November.
Mr. Alexander, we have a question that that asks, some survivors have their tattoos removed. Why have you chosen to keep yours? And does it have positive meaning or cause you sadness?
Why should I remove it? It's not the tattoo I put on. And I'm not ashamed of it. Why should I remove it?
Agree. Did you struggle to adjust to life after your experience in the camps? Adam Rouse asks that.
Yes, it did a little. It took a little time to adjust because don't forget I was liberated in Germany. That's not the place I grew up. Not the place I was born and grew up. Strange place, and nobody. I have no family, nobody, nothing. I was 21 at the time, and I had nobody. So it took some adjustment, some time, because I lived there for 4 years. So it took time, but I had to adjust.
Sure. I have one more before I pass it back to Ken. This is from Brian Goldberg. He asks, I would like to know where his well of strength to survive came from. It seems that through his travels from the ghetto to his home and then from camp to camp, that he was continuously surrounded by sickness, death, and despair with no end. Was your will instilled by your parents, or did it come from your faith in God?
Well, both. I first looks like I have some good genes from my parents and the faith in God.
Okay. See, we have another question from Christy overall. Did your positive experience with American soldiers after your liberation contribute to your decision to relocate here to America as a refugee?
Well, I had some contact with American soldiers in Germany. So that's why I decided just to get out of Germany. At first, like I said, I wanted to go to Canada because Canada, I just wanted to get out. I had very good life in Germany for the 4 years, but I didn't plan to stay there. So I had to wait to some country, so I'm Canada. But Canada didn't come up with what I expected to. I waited a long time and they didn't ask for me. So then I decided to go to America. So.
Oh, we're glad you're here.
Thank you. So am I.
Let's see, Angela Brunel has an interesting question is, was there a particular prayer or thought that you said or repeated in your head to help keep your spirits up, to help keep you going?
Yes, it is. It's a prayer that we always say, usually in the morning we get up. That the prayer that says, let's see, Moadi. It's that you're happy that the morning you got up, you're still alive, that you're alive. And also you say, there's a prayer you said, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. That's God is one, and God is one forever.
Thank you.
Mr. Alexander, because this, Tiffany Wright asks, because this didn't happen overnight, are you ever afraid of history repeating itself? And what dangers should we be looking for today?
Well, That's the danger is the spreading of the anti-Semitism.
Mhm.
We have to do to combat so we can stop that anti-Semitism, what's going on. Like, you know, what happened in Pittsburgh, what happened in San Diego, and so far, so other places happened here in Los Angeles a couple years ago. So this is what we have to stop and spread. Is the main thing is now, is for us, the few survivors who are left, is that's why we are talking to the schools, to the young people. You have to get them educated, the young people. Because I know lately I've heard there is a thing that 70% of the young people never heard of the Holocaust. So this is why we have to spread the word that what happened during the Holocaust, to the mainly, especially to the young people.
Yes, definitely. There's a question being asked, what were the attitudes like towards survivors by non-Jewish Germans after the war?
Well, actually what was, like I said, I lived 4 years after the war in Germany. I had no problem with the Germans. We knew some people because there's some who were the Nazis, but actually, whenever you talk to a German, nobody belonged to the Nazi party. There were no Nazis. But we had no problem. We lived very nice with them. I have some good friends. Even today, I have a couple of good friends. We're in contact constantly with some a German couple. So it was, we didn't actually feel anything that anybody would be against you or do something for you or something. It was all right.
I think we have a final question that is a great way to end our Q&A session. We have many questions, but I think what we can do is send them to you, and we can possibly get answers and share them. But this final one, Mr. Alexander, is, do you remember what you felt when you heard that Hitler was dead?
What I felt? Well, I couldn't be more happy that he finally, because, you know, I've been back several times to the camps, to Auschwitz, to Dachau, and I've been asked by people, why did you come back? So you know what I tell them? I came back, I survived, Hitler didn't.
That's right.
That's what I tell them.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Ken?
All I can say at this point is thank you so much for being here, for sharing your story. We will be sending out some follow-up information to the audience for tomorrow. There is no real way to follow this up. Just thank you so much for being here and sharing your story.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very honored to talk to you.
The honor is ours, sir.
And also, we appreciate any kind of thank yous that anybody wants to send.
That'll be mentioned with the follow-up. We have a thing that's going to go out.
And also let me add, if anybody sends in for ask a question, let them send an email so I can respond to it.
Okay,
Mr. Alexander, I'm sorry, Mr. Alexander, we have so many comments that are popping up in the chat right now with praise and accolades for you. So what we can do is we will also capture those and we will share them with you so that you can read how you have touched so many hundreds and hundreds of people that are on this call right now. And
Good.
we will accumulate the questions so that we can get them to you as well. It's amazing. They're just popping up one after
Good,
the other.
good. Well, if we got more time, I'd be happy to answer now some of the question more. It's up to you if we have more time.
Well, we're just about out of our time limit.
Oh, all right.
So we only have a certain amount of time for the program.
Oh,
But
okay.
we are so grateful
That's
for
right.
you.
And with
Thank
your
you.
permission, we will share the email
Yes.
if that's okay. All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us.
You know what? If you have one
Yes.
more minute, I'll show you 1 minute, 1 second.
Okay.
That I'm getting out New Year's card from Dachau every year. Can you see this? Happy New Year.
Hold it a bit higher. Oh, well, no, I guess it, yeah.
Wow.
Happy New Year from Dachau.
Incredible.
I'm getting every year now, since I was there, since 2015. Every year I get a New Year's card.
Well, you are a real treasure, and we are so thankful that you took the time to share your story with us.
Well, that's what I'm here for. That's my mission, you know?
Well, mission accomplished.
Yeah, that's why I said, that's why God kept me so I can tell my story.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, on behalf of the Tennessee Holocaust Commission, we wish you all a good night.
Good night.
And we thank you for joining us, all of you.
Thank you for doing this, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander, and we will be in touch.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah, okay, thank you.